Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Morris County Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs meeting. And we are so proud to have a star-studded event today with Senators Sweeney and Senators Oroho. And we're really going to let you guys ask a lot of questions later on, but please use the question and answer feature at the bottom of your screen as opposed to the chat. You can chat amongst yourselves, but if you have questions, there's a Q&A section and you can type in your questions. Rich Levesque will be moderating the questions. And I'm going to hand it off now to the chairman of this illustrious committee, Alan Zakin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike, and thank everyone for being here today. Especially thank Senate President Sweeney and Senator Oroho for, as always, your participation. And Senator Sweeney, I know you've been willing to come all the way up north for this, so now, because of circumstances, at least you don't have to travel, so we're glad about that. Welcome, everyone. I'll be quick because we have a big agenda and a small amount of time. I do want to first mention that our next meeting is this Friday at 8 a.m. With new Assemblywoman Ora Dunn of the 25th Legislative District. That's the one where Senator Buteas is the senator. We have a tentative meeting a week from tomorrow. We just have to firm that up with Speaker Coughlin and Republican Leader Bramnick. So please stay tuned for that, and we'll have more things for you. We've been trying to keep you well informed during this crisis, and this is an event in conjunction with the Morris County Chamber Government Affairs Committee and the Morris ELC, and we'll hear from some people from NJBIA in a minute. I also want to thank MWW, and we have Rich Levesque, who's going to handle our question and answer and co-moderate. And Marshall Spivak and Bill Murray from there were very helpful. I want to thank our sponsor, Tilcon. We have Josh Benson here, and also United Airlines was a sponsor, so we thank them. And I'd like to, before we get started then, turn it over to the Chamber President, Meghan Hunscher, for some announcements.
Thank you, Alan, and welcome everyone. I think we have over 100 of you registered today. So I would like to thank Senator Sweeney for making the long trek to northern New Jersey, virtually of course, and for Senator Oroho for being with us as well. Thank you, as Alan mentioned, to our sponsors, Tilcon and also United Airlines. I just have a few remarks I'd like to make. I know we have a busy agenda, as Alan said, but I do want to welcome all of you, of course, and acknowledge the fact that many of us are experiencing financial difficulty. Some of you may have lost loved ones, so we certainly offer our condolences to you. I mean, this virus has been terrible. It's affected all of us in some way, some worse than others. So please know that our thoughts and prayers are with you during this difficult time. And at the Chamber, we're certainly working hard virtually to fulfill our mission. We continue to connect, to convene, to facilitate, to educate, and to advocate. So those of you who have presented on our daily seminars, thank you. For those of you who have attended, we hope that you have benefited from a lot of the knowledge that has been imparted, and the videos are on our website, so you can listen to and see our presentations at any time in our video library. And that's also open to the full business community at this time. Again, I want to thank Alan for all of his hard work putting together these virtual seminars and also presentations from our elected officials. So thank you, Alan, for your volunteer leadership. We know New Jersey has had its challenges before COVID. We've heard numerous times from Senator Sweeney and Senator Oroho, who've presented to our chamber, discussing the path to progress. And today we will hear about how this epidemic continues to affect New Jersey and how necessary it is to have a plan to move forward for recovery. As I mentioned earlier, at the Chamber, we're doing a number of things to connect you with resources that you need to succeed as a business during this difficult time. One of those things is we've proudly put together a task force with Senator Buteas to hear from businesses firsthand about their concerns about reopening safely, and of course what they need from government and also from trusted advisors to do so. We're fortunate to have Bruce Groves of Emilcott, which is an environmental services firm, chairing this task force, and Michael Stanzilis, our VP of membership, has been also leading this effort with Senator Bucco. I would like to share a few of our findings before we continue. First of all, if you haven't received it, there are a number of surveys going around that I encourage you to answer. One is from the New Jersey BIA and also from the New Jersey State Chamber. We've sent a few to our members as well, so thank you for filling those out. They're really important for us to gain the pulse and really understand what is going on in the business community. We know it's not consistent. Some of you have been impacted more than others, but we do know that you're all seeking clarity and direction to safely operate. From the boat rental and the marina on Lake Hopatcong to our mom and pop retail stores in Denville and Morristown to our large retail franchises that extend throughout our country. There's quite a number of questions that you all have, and it's really, really heartening to see us all come together and feel comfortable asking these questions and saying, in some cases, we really don't know, and we do need advice and guidance for this path forward. We know that our restaurants have lost over 70% of their revenue. Many who are still open are struggling. They're, of course, having takeout and curbside pickup, and we encourage all of you to patronize them. We know that even businesses that are open, such as car dealerships, their employee count is reduced. So there are those in our community who aren't working. And we know what the New Jersey DOL is struggling with to really respond to those who have applied for UI at this time. And many businesses are trying to keep their employees on the payroll. And so thank you to those who are patronizing them so that they can do that. We know that there's also a lot of opportunities. We heard from a commercial real estate broker who said that some businesses he expects will be looking at New Jersey. We know in Morris County we have the largest suburban office space in the entire state, and we're fortunate in that regard. You can safely social distance and get business done. So we're looking forward to speaking with our real estate brokers to learn more about businesses that may be looking to move west out of New York. A lot of questions still about risk assessment. How do we work closely with our local health departments? Do we take temperatures? What is the accuracy of our testing currently? A lot of questions about gauging employees' health and monitoring them, and also our customers and clients. We know that the pharmaceutical company in New Jersey, pharmaceutical companies in New Jersey make us the strong economy that we are, and we're extremely highly educated state. But we do know from speaking with our friends at Hinge that the big concern is supply and distribution, our supply chain. So manufacturing, speaking with NJMEP, the importance of making sure that we have robust supply chains, that individuals who work in manufacturing sector can safely work, and also, of course, deliver the goods that we need to the manufacturing sector that's working so hard to honestly save lives. So we know it's not one size fits all. We're very excited about moving forward with this task force. Thank you all for your support of those on the front lines. We have many members of ours who have created opportunities to donate. We know that Morris County is an extraordinary place. New Jersey is an extraordinary place. We're strong, we're robust, we're a diverse economy. We know we'll get through this together. And I look forward to hearing from the senators today about the road to recovery. So thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Well, we're going to get right to our senators. I first just want to mention a couple of housekeeping things for those that haven't used Zoom or those that have. We have two functions you should see at the bottom of your screen. There is a Q&A. So if you have questions for either senator or both, please do type those in at the Q&A. It also is a chat. At our meetings, when they're smaller and in person, we go around and have everyone introduce themselves. You could do that through the chat function. You could put your Zoom link, say who you are and your affiliation. We'll also send a list of who was on and their affiliations afterwards. Colette from the chamber will send that around. And quickly for 2 minutes, we want to get in, if we have Chrissy Buteas on from NJBIA, I believe she's just going to give us a very brief 2-minute summary, and then we'll get to our speakers. Chrissy there? All right, well, we could get to that later. I give the Senate President the prerogative if he'd like to go first, or let Sen Oroho go first. And please, I think we all know him and appreciate his hard work and accessibility. Senate President Steve Oroho, thank you.
No.
You each give presentations, 10, 15 minutes each, and then go ahead, and it's your prerogative if you'd like to go first, or let your colleague go first.
Well, since Steve needs a haircut real bad,
I do.
hey, listen, but it's someone that's challenged follically. I'm impressed. Go ahead, Steve. You go first.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. And Alan, that was a slip when you said Senate President Steve Oroho, because that'll never happen.
Oh my God, I slipped there. Uh-oh.
No, that's okay. But I
don't want to upset either of you guys, but I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. But I first of all, I got to thank the Senate President, because, you know, over the weekend we got the parks open, the golf courses open, we got dog groom, and honestly, you know, Steve mentioned my haircut, but I think my wife Rita booked me as a Saint Bernard to get the haircut from the dog groomer, because somehow I got to get a haircut. But anyway, you know, because the Senate President's leadership, we speak almost every day, and he asked Sen Oroho and myself to help lead the effort within the legislature to have the reopening. And I guess the governor's having their first committee meeting today for his group, but the Senate President was you know much in the lead that said, hey, Steve and Paul, would you guys be talking with our industry groups and have them put plans together, you know, make sure they put, and quite frankly, when I was making phone calls, our industry groups were already doing it. I mean, they were already getting, they've been shut down, I don't know, 5 weeks or so now. From day one, they started thinking, well, what's it going to take for me to get up and running? And I want to give a shout out to the New Jersey business and industry, and Alan, you and I spoke about it. Josh, you and I spoke about it enough, and Megan, with respect to the coalition that they put together. I think when Senate President Sweeney first asked me to try and talk about helping lead the legislative aspect, or at least the Senate aspect of getting the industries back together, I made phone calls to Michelle Skirka, Tom Bracken, Jim Appleton, Jimmy Schultz, a number of different people. Ralph Thomas at the New Jersey CPA Society, because I'm a CPA. And I asked them, I said, how are we doing? And quite frankly, I was very, very glad to hear that they had already started this whole coalition. And at the time, I think there was about 60 members of the coalition. Now it's up over 80 members. And I think on Friday, Chrissy, you sent out something on Friday with respect to, they had sent out their survey, which they had talked to their members, but then they sent out some, the industry plans. And I know the governor's committee is getting together, today for the first time, but it would be a shame if they just started to, do something all over again, because our industries have been at this, BIA and the whole coalition. And I just we got to come up with a good name for this coalition, because we really, they have been hard at work. And if it had not been for the Senate President saying, hey, listen, let's get this going, but we put out a release the other day after the release from the survey. And I know it was because of, people like Senator Sweeney and Senator Oroho and my colleague, Declan O'Scanlan, and, obviously Senator Ruiz and Senator Singleton getting on board with the press release. Now, the governor may not agree. But I think it certainly had a big influence on the fact of, hey, listen, there's a lot of people out there, and Governor, listen, he's in a tough spot. There's no doubt about it. There's, a lot of significant things going on, but at the same time, there's a lot of smart people thinking about this. They've been in industry for 50, 60 years. They know how to be responsible. And when Chrissy, and I hope I'm not taking too much of your thunder here, but when you put that on Friday, I think it was Friday, I was extremely impressed with the number of industries that have put stuff together. But I'm also very hopeful that more and more industries will see that, people are being responsible. And the sooner we are able to put some plans on the governor's desk, I think more and more his committee and himself will be comfortable letting other people have done a lot of homework already. And so, as I said, I couldn't be more proud of the fact that the Senate President asked Senator Oroho and myself to help with this aspect in the legislative group. And we're going to keep pushing. We have to keep pushing because we can do more than one thing, one thing at a time. And as I said, I know the one thing I know that people, when they've invested a lot of money and they've invested a lot of time, and the biggest thing they have, other than their monetary investment, is the brand that they've established for their company, for their industry. The biggest thing you can have in a brand is how you have trust amongst your employees and your customers. And they know what they have to do in order to do that. And these plans that the coalition put on, sent to the legislature, sent to the governor, sent to his staff, I think is a first volley to show that, and there'll be a lot more coming. But as I said, when Senate President called me on that Friday and said, hey, can you get involved with this? And I did. And I was very proud of New Jersey. And it came very quickly that, you know what? A lot of people have been thinking about this for already a month already, and they know what they're doing. And let's let them just do what they know they need to do.
And, I want to thank Steve because I go to Steve a lot. I know that sounds crazy. I'm a Democrat, but I go to Steve a lot.
We're good friends.
Because we're good friends and I trust him. And he's probably one of the sharpest guys that we have when it comes to the economy. And, so I went to Poland and Steve. I added some diversity with Senator Ruiz and Singleton. But at the end of the day, there's no partisan about getting our economy going again. It's critical that we get moving again. But the governor took some very serious, difficult steps to protect our health, which, I recognize and I appreciate. He's done a good job with that. But my focus has been for the last several weeks is the economy, because we have to come out of this as strong as we possibly can. And we need to start identifying industries that can be opening up again. And I was just joking about Steve with his hair, but something, if he can do it safely, then do it. My belief is give guidance. The state to give some Steve, I'm jealous, I have none. But, my belief is the state should give guidance to industries and then let them open the hell up if they can. If they can't, then that's a business owner's decision. But, car sales is a simple one. It took us 8 days to get the governor to allow car sales online. And that's a large generator of tax. Well, Connecticut, New York, Pennsylvania, and Delaware were all selling cars online. We were surrounded, and we weren't selling any cars. Now car dealers are selling about 40% of the vehicles they would normally sell. Well, the point is, their shops are open. Let people by appointment come in, sit in the car, take the ride. We are able to get the administration to expand. People could come and get in the car and feel the car, because we want to get businesses moving again. Surgeries. We want to get the hospitals up and running again. Our hospitals are furloughing workers. Think about this in this crazy time that we're dealing with. Doctors and nurses are being furloughed from hospitals because, non-essential surgeries are shut down, and that's the lifeline of hospitals. So I'm a believer that if we go to different industries and working with NJBIA and Chamber and other groups and other associations throughout the state, we give you guidance. Let us help you open this business back up in a safe way. In Atlantic and Cape May counties, they've gotten together and they're coming up with a plan to open the beaches and open, for the summer. Realize that's billions and billions of dollars to our economy that will be gone, and damage that will be done if we can't figure that out. So great. And look, Steve and I and others put a press release out, and we really do appreciate the governor giving us a shot, because we do believe the super majority of New Jerseyans get how serious this is and are not going to screw it up so that we lose the opportunity to go to parks and golf courses. I've never golfed, just so you know. It's just something that I was always working a couple of jobs. It takes too long. But we had golf course owners that were losing their properties because they couldn't open up. And, small businesses have, about a month's worth of cash before they burn through it. So, we have a lot of businesses, like, basically on life support, and we have to figure a way to let them open up safely so people can go into their stores. And we know it's not going to be the same. Unemployment's going to be a historic highs. So, but every job that we can save, every business that we can save is important. Because the one thing I don't want is, the golf course owners were telling me, you're putting me out of business. Government shouldn't put people out of business, especially people that have worked their whole lives to build something. So for me, it's guidance, working with the different business groups like yourself, with the Morris Chamber and the State Chamber and NJBIA, and just give me the rules and I'll see if I can work it. If I have a 100-seat restaurant and I only can sit 25 people safely, that might not work. That might not work for me. But at least let me, as the business owner, decide what will work and what can work, while keeping all the social distancing and keeping people safe. But with that, I know you got questions. I can talk for quite some time, but I've turned over to questions.
Well, thank you. And I just, we do have Chrissy Buteas from NJBIA just for a brief 1.5, 2 minute review. So we have some time. I just want to also just quickly mention that we do have some people on. I want to acknowledge the president of County College of Morris, Tony Iacano, is on the Zoom meeting, as are many of the freeholders, Freeholder DeFilippo, Freeholder Deputy Director Shaw, Freeholder Director Smith, who we'll have a question from in a minute, Morris County Administrator Benani, and we have a lot of local officials from Harding, Denville, Morris Township, Parsippany, and even outside of Morris County in Bethlehem and Hunterdon County. And with that, Morris ELC is a grassroots affiliate of NJBIA, and Chrissy Buteas is from that organization. And just a very brief update in what's going on in Trenton. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Meghan, for having me. Senate President Sweeney, Senator Oroho, thank you for all your leadership and advocacy. We're thrilled to be here today to give you a quick update. Alan has re-emphasized the be very brief, so I'm going to jump right into it so you can get to your Q&A. Senator Oroho, again, thanks for reaching out. You hit the nail on the head. We're heading up a business coalition of over 80 business organizations right now. What we're trying to do is coalesce behind a single set as much as possible of themes and initiatives that hopefully will make it easier for when you're passing policy to hear from a collective voice, in addition to all the different verticals and specific industries. And so we have sent over to the legislature, to the governor's office, a series of recommendations on different legislation, in the hopes of getting the business economy back up and running. As of late last week, we also sent out our poll results, which were alluded to. Main takeaway, 70% of our business organizations said that they can open safely, adhering to CDC guidelines. So that's good news. To Senate President's point, if you can open and do it safely, let's start to move in that direction. Again, keeping in mind, obviously, the health and safety of all of our residents in the state. And then furthermore, we sent over a whole host of recovery documentation as well as a framework for all of these different industries to open safely. And so that was sent over to the legislature and the governor's office as well. We hope that that's a resource. That is just our first iteration. We expect even more to come on that, but we can't wait any longer, and wanted to make sure that we were, stepping forward and putting a plan of action into place. So where do we go from here? We want to work again with the Senate President, Senator Oroho, who have been fabulous leaders in making sure we can get business back up and running. We know we have over a quarter of our population on unemployment. We actually think that number is low. We hear from our businesses day in and day out about their struggles. Both we're getting funding from the federal government as well as the state government. And so we're trying to do the best we can with, spearheading some changes and to actually getting money on the street. We know the Federal CARES Act has appropriated funds to the state, which can only be utilized for COVID-related expenses. And so our main ask has been to try to get some of that money into the business community's hands as quickly as possible, knowing that that money can only be utilized for COVID-related expenditures. And so again, I have a minute and a half. I'll just sum up with saying we look forward to working with the Senate President, Senator Oroho, the entire legislature, and also to our county leaders. Please utilize this as a resource as well. We want to help you at the local level as well to make sure that your businesses are able to reopen. And I'm sure I just used my minute and a half, Alan, so I will.
Thank you. And I think Senator Oroho wanted to say something, and then we'll get to our questions. I also want to acknowledge I missed Surrogate Darlene, who was very involved with the chamber and EDC. Please, Senator.
Hey, Alan, thank you very much. Actually, I'd be remiss, and I know the Senate President is huge on shared services, and I want to thank Morris County a lot with respect to. I know Tammy Horsfield, who is the President and CEO for the Sussex County Chamber of Commerce, is also on the call. I know she's a member. The Chamber is now a member of that coalition. I want to thank her for that, but also Morris County working with John Bonanni and Tony, the president of the community college. Sussex has been able to utilize the Morris County Testing Center at the County College of Morris for the past 3 weeks. And I know that Senate President Sweeney is real big on the whole issue of the shared services. And when Morris County got their site up and running, Sussex County had a little bit of issue with, not enough necessarily personnel to take care. So they were very gracious in letting Sussex County, I would say, piggyback on their testing center. And it's been a terrific opportunity for the Sussex County. Now we're going to be setting up a site also at the Sussex County Community College, but I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you guys very much for everything that you guys have helped with in showing that real partnership between two contiguous counties. And that's what government's supposed to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Well, now we'll go to question. Rich, I believe there was a question from Freeholder Director Smith. Do you have that question up there, Rich?
I do, Alan. So Freeholder Director Deborah Smith asked, before the state requests any additional line items to qualify for the CARES Act, can you and your colleagues in the legislature ask for monies to counties that were not able to receive them from that first round of funding? For example, Morris County is just 1.6% below the 500,000 population level that would qualify a county to receive funds out of the CARES Act. She believes that around 12 counties did not receive anything from the $2 billion that the state received, and yet these counties have expended a considerable amount of resources in fighting this pandemic. Any comments on that, Senators?
The biggest problem is this is a federal program, Rick. And it's frustrating because counties that expend dollars should be eligible for reimbursement, not because of their size. Obviously where I'm at, we have the least amount right now, knock on wood. But everyone's spending a whole lot of money right now. So I respect where they're at. And that's why when this first CARES Act came out, Rick, I was critical of it. I appreciate our federal legislators and all the work they do. But, you know, at the end of the day, what they do in Washington is everyone gets a piece. And Alaska got 1.2 billion, we got 3.4. We got less than $4 ahead. They got 1,700 or 17,000 ahead. You know, it's just not right. It's not fair. Money should go and resources should go where it's needed. And I know that Senator Menendez has a bipartisan bill right now down in Washington, which I do expect will happen because the feds, as much as they want to say, the hell with the states, are not going to allow unemployment to get to 30 or 40% before the November election. So I'm rooting for Senator Menendez and his colleague in Louisiana. I think it's, I forget the Cassidy, I forget his name, but there's going to be something. So, you know, this first phase was not fair. Hey, listen, we had cities that weren't eligible before. You know, that we didn't have one town that was eligible. Now we got a couple towns that are eligible. So for the federal loan program.
I'd just like to piggyback on that, Senator. I'm sorry, I didn't wait to let you, Senator Oroho, speak first.
No, go ahead, Alan. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Josh Benson and I, and we're talking before, and Rich, we were, there was also regarding the CARES Act, the federal monies only can go to COVID-related items, but as we all know, tax revenues and government revenues have been devastated all the way around. Is there a way where there could be more flexibility in that federal funding, have you discussed, so it doesn't have to go to specifically COVID-related expenses?
Well, I know Governor Murphy has met with the treasurer, Secretary Mnuchin, about relaxing some of the rules so we can use the money a little bit better, because we're bleeding everywhere. We're spending money, we're losing jobs. This is going to probably be the worst financial experience I've gone through in my lifetime. And the shorter, the better, because you're talking 3 or 4 years of really difficult budgeting now.
Yes, that's one of the reasons why the Senate President is exactly right in getting the cash flow going for the state, because the shallower we can make the hole, because it's going to be a big hole, but the less deep we can make it, the better. Auto sales is a huge part of our revenue stream, so just having them back on and having, you know, let's face it, I mean, as bad as it is, you know, 20% unemployment is horrible, and 25% is depression level. But the one thing we got to remember, that still means that 80% and 75% of the people are still working. So we can still keep that cash flow, as much as the cash flow that we can keep going. We need to keep that cash, you know, that cash flow going. With respect to the money that came from the CARES Act, I've been a little bit critical of the governor with respect to, and the administration, and I know what the governor is doing, and go and meet with President Trump and asking for as much help as New Jersey can get on the revenue side. That's understandable, and I appreciate the governor, you know, doing that. But the $3.4 billion that we received, now I represent, you know, Morris County has a few cities within it that had the 50,000 or more, because there were actually 3 criteria in that bill: 500,000 for a county, and there were 9 counties that qualified. And then you had some cities, if you had 50,000 or more, they would also qualify. And it was on, obviously on the housing and urban development criteria, but the third one was, I think, something called the principal city or something like that. And quite frankly, there were 4 counties that were nothing qualified. And, you know, Sussex County was one, Warren County is another, both in my district. Morris County, I think only because they were below the county size, but some of the municipalities were over 50, so they got a little bit. And Salem County was another that didn't get anything. They got no money whatsoever. And quite frankly, a lot of New Jersey towns, you know, and cities and counties are significantly hit. So the governor does have significant leeway with respect to the money that's not going to the counties and municipalities. And quite frankly, that is, I know the, you know, New Jersey Business and Industry sent a letter to the governor mentioning that we could use that money for, let's face it, the EDA had a program for 10 million, and that ran out of money. And I think they said 15 minutes. I think it was 15 seconds that it ran out of money, and we could certainly use some of the money for that. But listen, I've said it a number of times, you know, I'd rather have a healthy hen than the egg itself. A hen, you know, healthy egg can, you know, a hen can lay many eggs, but at the same time, if we don't get the cash flow stream going, and it was the same thing we had to do after Superstorm Sandy, where if we didn't get the, you know, the Jersey Shore going again, we would lose a significant amount of revenue coming. And that's exactly what we have to do now. Because if we don't prime the pump and get it going, the hole is just going to get deeper and deeper.
Thank you, Senators. Next question is from Heather Darling, Saragate in Morris County. There have been various ways of towns and counties reporting COVID-related deaths and positive tests relating to COVID. Is there a plan in place to have a more uniform approach to this so that we can get through the different phases of the president's plan and the governor's plan to reopen the economy soon?
Can I?
Go ahead, Steve.
All right, and then the only thing I would say there is listen, for anybody in government, anybody in elected officials position, and I know the Senate president has been working extremely hard because he's got to take a bunch of calls from me all the time, being frustrated and whatnot. Listen, we went into this very quickly. Everybody in government went into this very quickly. I've been doing financial reporting and financial analysis my whole life. You get better in my whole career. You get better and better as you go on. And I will think our reporting systems have gotten better and better. Do we need to have as much information as possible? Yes, but I really can't. I wish we had, you know, so many other different the criteria with respect to who was tested, who was positive, who was negative, who's been in the hospital, who's been out of the hospital, who might have had it, who might have had the serology test, who might not have had the serology test. But I do think as it's gone on, the reporting has gotten better and better. Is it as good as it needs to be? No. Do we have to make sure that this is a really important lesson learned? Absolutely.
And you know, the reality is, and the governor has been calling for, we don't have enough tests.
Right.
You know, and testing is everything. And realize we're testing people that say they have symptoms. You know, and if you watch, what I've been paying attention to is the percentage of people that are testing positive continues to drop. But really, the focus for all of us should be the economy right now. Because if we don't get focused on the economy, we should be all back up and running by Memorial Day weekend. I mean, all businesses that can safely do it with the social distancing. If we wait any longer, there's not going to be anything to come back to. So, you know, I appreciate the governor. He put a national group together and they're doing their thing. But that doesn't mean that we can't have a voice in how this is going to look. And that's why, you know, when I asked Steve and Paul to jump in on this, they jumped right in and they come up with a lot of good ideas. So look, the people of New Jersey know what they need to do to get back up and running. The demonstrations that the parks and the golf courses were safe, for the most part. There's always a handful that you're always going to have. Look, every single day we lose not open up the economy is businesses that are not coming back.
Yep, very true. And to piggyback on that a little bit is the issue of our supply chain. When you look at the testing and whatnot, you know, some of the you know, the breaks in the chain that you take a look at, that, you know, in the United States, we're real good at making the real expensive machines. But when the supply chain gets broken down by the fact that the cotton swab, we don't make enough cotton swabs. We don't make the little plastic shield that gets used to be able to use the $100,000 machine to test, you know, to use that, you know, expensive machine. We got to look at that. We got to make sure that in the United States or in New Jersey, we're making things, you know, from start to finish to make sure that we are able to do the things we need to do. Because when, you know, a 1/10 of 1 cent cotton swab, because it doesn't have the highest profitability margin. I got to tell you, I want to really give a great shout out to John Kennedy and New Jersey MEP, New Jersey Manufacturing Central Program, because people don't realize how much manufacturing we do have in New Jersey, and they've done a terrific job of getting them all geared up for helping for the PPE. But you got to think about the lowest common denominator of that cotton swab, and the reason why it's not made here because it's not a high enough profit margin, and that stops the ability to have the kind of testing that we need. That's something we really need to take a look at.
Senator, you mentioned that, and that actually piggybacks on something I wanted to say regarding manufacturing. In addition to wanting to have things in the supply chain that are domestic now and that are more safe to bring manufacturing here, New Jersey has the education and the skill sets and the industries to capitalize on that. And one of the things that we're very big on, which is great to have domestically, is food production. And there was a question as to mandatory testing for a lot of the food manufacturing facilities, because obviously if we have a chink in the food supply chain, that would be just a disaster. Could you both comment on mandatory food testing? Testing for COVID for food manufacturing.
And that's obvious. I mean, look what's happening with the meat packing plants now. People are on top of each other. Who didn't know something was going to people were eventually going to get sick? But back to Steve's point, the reason why they didn't have the protective gear is because they didn't have the protective gear. We need to manufacture, we need to prioritize things made in this country. The one thing that is crystal clear is we don't have enough manufacturing capacity. In World War II, we won World War II because we out-manufactured the world.
Yeah.
You can't say that today. We can't manufacture masks. We can't, we got to get our manufacturers to completely retool and print out, to start doing the protective gear that we need to do. If anything, let's learn a lesson from what happened here to ensure that we prop up some industries in the state that will guarantee us that we're always going to have the equipment that we need. Our nursing homes, just so you know. I'll get back to the food processing, which is huge in my district, just so you know. The nursing homes, the reason why there's so many fatalities in nursing homes is people don't have the PPE. I mean, it's that simple. And here's the other problem. New Jersey's probably 49th in the nation in Medicaid reimbursement. And that's been through several administrations. So we don't reimburse well, so you get what you pay for. We didn't protect the most vulnerable, and the most vulnerable are suffering the most. We got to learn from the lessons we made here. But Alan, if you ever seen, we got processing centers here in New Jersey without protective coverings, and you're going to have this. So testing should be mandatory in everything. Rutgers just came up with a saliva test. They said it's going to get you a quick response time. Now realize how fast this company is developing new types of tests, and their vaccines are they're studying now. But we have to improve our manufacturing capacity so that we're not at the whim of China, who was importing more and exporting less. They knew what was going on, and they're a rival. They're not really a friend. They're a necessary evil. But recognize we need to start building more things and manufacturing more things here. Period.
Yep. The one thing as a former football coach, and you used to go in at halftime, and the good teams made real good strategic changes to the game plan. And one of the things that we have to think about here is that, listen, America's got a great team. We really do. We let some things go away. We let some talent go away to other countries that we thought we could be more of a service kind of economy. And quite frankly, we've known, as Senate President said, in World War II, it was absolutely critical from a national security issue that we're able to build things here. And I think one of our halftime decisions we have to look at is, how do we now say, in our whole supply chain, that we have to make sure that in the critical processes that we have, that we're able to go from start to finish here, and to be able to scale that very quickly. And that, to me, that's going to be a strategic advantage for not only our national defense, but also our national psyche. Because one of the things I am very concerned about, I am very concerned about this, is how many people, like, you know, like I've said before, my oldest granddaughter is 10 years old. And I use this example a lot, and I hope people don't get annoyed at me for saying this, but in 1968 to 1969, I was 10 years old. My oldest granddaughter is 10 years old. And we had the Hong Kong flu, and it came through, and it was devastating. 100,000 people in the United States died. There was 205 million people in the United States at the time. However, you know, now with the same kind of, we have about 333 million people in the United States today. So the equivalent would be about 150,000 deaths. And God, thank God, because all the steps that were taken, I don't think we're going to get that close. However, we're kind of now at that line where, are we more afraid of life than anything else? Now, my granddaughter, she'll probably never forget the fact that she's got to wear a mask. When I was 10 years old, I didn't have to wear a mask. I didn't have but what I will tell you, what I do remember about 1968, 1969, I remember that the Mets won the World Series. Sorry, the Phillies didn't win, Steve, but the Mets won the World Series. The Jets won the Super Bowl. The Knicks won the NBA playoff, and America put the first person on the moon. I don't remember. Here's what I'm really concerned about. What's my 10-year-old granddaughter going to think about for her 10th birthday? Is she going to be afraid about going out, you know, afraid to go outside, you know? So listen, we got to break the back of this virus. We got to do the right thing. Nobody's saying at all not to do the right thing. And Chrissy and the BIA will show you everything that they have. Every single industry is thinking about how we do this responsibly. And it's incumbent upon all of us to do it responsibly, but God darn, we can do it responsibly.
Thank you.
Rich. Thank you. Yeah. So, Senators, you both have mentioned the working group, legislative working group under both of your leadership, along with Senator Sarlo, Senator Scanlon, probably other colleagues as well. So, and we've been reading about the efforts to get the business plans on the governor's desk that show how we can open up businesses with social distancing guidelines in place. We have over 100 small business owners on this webinar now. What can they do to help you achieve some of those goals so that we can be open by Memorial Day weekend, like Senator Sweeney is hoping? What can these business owners do to help you guys?
Rich, if I can add, just to sort of combine questions, because of the time, we want to get people back by May 1st, but there's also a complimentary question about childcare, because as people get back, since the schools are going to be closed, can you just weave that into your answer?
Yes, Steve.
All right. Well, honestly, Rich, I think the best thing to do, I mean, the Child Care Association industry actually is one of the plans that were in the BIA presentation, and it's very detailed. It's very responsible. I think they know how to do it. We may need some help with. I think there's been some federal aid with respect to helping make sure that there is money for the child care. But at the same time, for the small businesses, I would ask them to take a look at what's in the associations that are in the BIA coalition and see how they might fit in and lend their voice. And anybody that they know, if there's another association, another chamber of commerce, another whatever, if they can, the more voices we can get into that coalition. And as I said, I got to tell Chrissy, we got to come up with a good name for that coalition. I think that's exactly what we have to do, because the more and more, I think the governor will see that there's responsible people and responsible industries out there. And as I said when I started this call, I don't think if it wasn't for the Senate President's willingness to put out the press release, I don't think we necessarily would have had the parks open or the golf courses or the dog groomers or the number of businesses that got opened under the non-essential category. But I also do think we call for construction and auto sales and a number of others. And I do think that for if you're in a small business, you can latch on to one of these associations and please make your voice heard. And I think it'll be very influential.
Thank you.
Okay, one other question we're getting is, you mentioned help from the chambers and some of these business organizations, business groups. The request has come in and we're respectfully asking that both you state senators and your colleagues help advocate on the federal law in conjunction with our New Jersey delegation to include 501c6s as part of the next round of financial assistance at the federal level. You know, these business organizations are really the backbone of the business community up and down the state. And they've also been crushed. As you see, we're having webinars right now that are open to our members and not having events. So any assistance you can provide them, I think, would be important as well.
And Senator Sweeney, you work with a 501c5, and I think they have a similar type of issue.
Yeah, listen, we got to ensure we keep our organization strong. Rick, like this is a gathering point for us to get information so that we can move forward with things. When I said Memorial Day, I'm dead serious. Mm-hmm. I just think we collectively have to press. You know, people, and I respect the governor's position, but as the science is showing us and the numbers are going in the direction, we can't wait for us to be all the way out of the woods to say, okay, now it's safe. Because it might be safe, but it'll be too late. So again, working, you know, having Steve and Paul and Teresa and Troy moving forward with this stuff. Look, the purpose was to get together, to start the communication, to get the information to the administration and say, hey, look, here's their plan. What do you think? You know, it's great to have this national board, but I don't want to wait forever. I want to move quickly. I really do. I think that we should be in waves opening up businesses. You know, Pennsylvania Governor Wolf is starting to do that. He's opening up sectors. Now, I agree, you know, that, you know, opening up parts of the state would be problematic because everyone will run to one part of the state. But the point is, we should be opening up the entire state safely and securely. And again, if you can open up your business without risking people's health, then you absolutely should be, you know, moving forward and doing that.
And I will tell you, that's exactly what the Senate President asked me to do. Was it maybe 3 Fridays ago or something like that? He said, listen, we got to be responsible, but whatever we can do to make sure, because at the time, he said the governor's focused on the healthcare aspect, which we had to be. He had to be. Listen, it's a very emotional thing, but the Senate President said we have to start thinking about, you know, what's next, and when the what's next stage comes, we got to be ready. So that's what we focused on, and we found a very willing partner in that whole coalition.
And listen, I just want to add one other point. Other voices have to be heard. It just can't be Steve and me. You know, like other voices need to speak up now. Businesses need to be public on how they can open their businesses safely and respecting the rules. Because you're not going to get anywhere if it's just us talking. You know, like our organizations, our business groups, put your plans out. Let the public start reading things. People are bored to death anyway. They'll probably read something they would have never read before. But put out plans that show that we can open our businesses. We have to push. And I'm telling you, we're going to have to push extremely hard to get businesses back open. The fact that it took 8 days to allow online car sales, I get it. We got to be cautious. The governor's done a very good job protecting our health. But what about our economic health? That is just as important because it's not going to exist if we don't move forward.
The other thing we got to remember too is there are going to be many people that are you know, because of the media, what's happened, and people are just afraid and they're scared. But I see a lot of people wearing masks and scarves and whatnot. But at the same time, you're going to have a lot of people that don't want to leave their house. And so businesses know that they have to gain their trust, just like as a parent trying to teach a child how to swim. They're gonna have to, you know, trust you that you're not gonna let them, you know, fail. And I do think that our business owners and our industries, you know, have demonstrated that. And let's face it, they know that if they screw up, they're going to lose a customer for a long time and maybe permanently. So they want to make sure they do things right.
Senators, I wanted to get, I promised Senator Panaccio I would get a quick question in, but we don't have a lot of time. If you give a quick answer. He, you might have heard, he proposed, I don't think it's a bill number yet or official, but a concept to voluntarily waive all or part of 3 months rent to businesses up to $15,000. And in return, the landlord would be eligible for a state tax credit. These are designed for all businesses.
I spoke to Senator Panaccio, and I'm open to it. I think it sounds like a good idea. It's like anything, the devil's in the detail, but it sounds like a good idea to me. And I told Joe I would work with him on it.
Thank you.
So Senator Sweeney, Senator Oroho, I guess, we're focused on right now trying to open up businesses and everything, but a few questions regarding the state budget. And I know that that's been pushed off till the end of September. We have a little bit of time. We'll be able to assess and reassess the dollars that are coming into the state and what you folks have to work with, essentially. Any insight into senior property tax rebates, senior freezes, any sorts of those things, or any other insight into the state budget? And is the $9 billion request that the governor's making, is that a legitimate number, or is it just kind of thrown out there right now?
We don't, listen, we don't know the numbers. We've been asking the administration to give us the modeling, show us the numbers. Because the administration says, we got to go bond. We want to do general obligation bonds. We got to go bond. And that $9 billion is the treasury notes that the federal government will guarantee, but you got to repay back in 3 years instead of 2. Rick, until we know where we stand, I think, my belief is that we're going to have to cut a whole bunch of stuff. You know what I mean? We're going to have to be cutting because we don't have the luxury of raising a lot of taxes. And the biggest problem with borrowing is the first thing, if you go on a general obligation bond, first thing they back it up with is the sales tax. Our sales tax is going to be decimated, for the next couple of years, it's going to be down. So what happens if it's down and you can't pay it? That means you raise it. And that's going to impact and hurt the economy of the state. Look, we don't have the room other states have because we squandered those opportunities by raising spending maybe when we shouldn't have. Steve and I have been trying to rein things in. Look, now it's time for pension reform discussion.
Yep.
Every time we talk to Wall Street, they focus on the pension. Right? And you know something? We might be only the second state to wind up with a B status bonding rate. We're 1 grade above B. And if we go borrow, I guarantee you we are going down. And that makes it even more expensive for New Jersey. And so what happens now is, look, it's like musical chairs and the music stopped. We got to make some really tough decisions now. But with the decisions that we make now are going to make a difference whether the state's going to be affordable going forward or it's just, we blow it.
When we had the property tax cap come in, Senator Sweeney, he always gets me involved in these commissions and stuff. But when we had the property tax cap come in, he has to lead with Senator Oroho again the path to progress. And right now, I mean, that's a plan that the governor could use to absolutely do some cost restructuring. Because let's face it, a lot of things have changed because of this. And if we don't do some sort of wholesale cost restructuring to help, as I talked, that hole get shallower, that'll help fill in the hole a lot quicker. And there's a lot of great ideas in that path to progress. That wasn't something that was put on the shelf. Senator Sweeney went all around the state he took a lot of grief because of it from a lot of different people. But let me tell you, that is something that the governor could absolutely use to say, okay, here's something we could show that we want to rein in our costs. We're going to do our share, but also asking, when he asked the president for, I think he said 20 to 30 billion was his number, not the 9 billion. He said 20 to 30 billion. And as the Senate president said, we really haven't gotten very much information out of the administration about where it really stands. But when he said 20 to 30 billion, it kind of caught my ear.
And just one other thing, Steve and I are sponsoring a bill basically to follow what private businesses are doing, which is furloughs.
Yep.
You know, to take advantage of the federal furlough program. We could save up to $750 million between municipal, county, state governments without hurting anyone. And we're going to be passing that bill on the 14th. We're looking at a bill, and I've been working with Steve on this too, about an infrastructure, getting the feds to do a loan program for pensions. So we could borrow some money for our pensions from the federal government, paying back 1.5%, and free up, paying back the loan, we could free up within our pension payment $1.8 billion, maybe $2 billion. There's things out there that we can do to help us, and we're constantly looking at options and availability. So it's not like we're just sitting here. You know, we came up, Steve helped me with, we did a bill on teachers' healthcare plan.
Right.
You know, we're going to save over $1 billion. You know, hoping the assembly moves quickly on it. But you know, there's things out there, and the healthcare program is an absolute piece from Path to Progress. You know, it was something we looked at and we worked on and we got done. So there are things we can do to control costs, and we need to control costs before we go borrow. And that's what we're going to be pushing right now, is understanding where we stand before we go. And look, that means we might not be able to give everybody everything they want. But, you know, these are unprecedented times, and we're going to have to deal with them.
Well, and Senator, to that point too, we're getting a bunch of questions on public-private partnerships. You guys did some P3 legislation in the past. Any discussion about emphasis on P3 moving forward, on expanding any sort of pieces of that or anything like that?
I was just told they finally got the rules and regs done for it right now.
Yep.
But it's ready. So P3s are critical. You know, what's the best way to get things going with the P3? Because government doesn't do, nor do they know how to do things the best. You know what I mean? And having your private partners, Path to Progress, we talked about hot lanes, right? Let some people build hot lanes. Let them build them, they're dollars, we get a few bucks, and then it's a choice if somebody wants to ride them. And the pension plan, Rick, that we're talking about, absolutely is that. So say the state could borrow $50 billion from the federal government. We would have to take 20% of that money and invest in infrastructure where we would make money back. You know what I'm saying? But again, it's driving to try infrastructure. Right now, there's a deal like that down there for transportation. What we're saying is pension infrastructure, tie them together, and like get our payment funded up. Not our payment, but our pension funded at 80%. And at 80%, we reduce our pension payment by almost $2 billion. And we're investing in infrastructure all at the same time.
This is great, and I think this makes me feel good, because we have here a Democrat leader, a union official. We have a former corporate CFO, Republican, Democrat, all working together, all saying smart things to help us recover and help business, and that gives me good hope. I know that everyone is busy and has to get back to other things. I want to, of course, first thank Senate President Sweeney taking time from his busy schedule, and Senator Oroho from his schedule, and wish you and yours health. And also thank Josh Benson and Tilcon and United Airlines as sponsors, and thank Chrissy Buteas from BIA and Rich Levesque and MWW for their help. And I want to turn it over to end things, wish everyone health and safety, and turn over to Meghan Hunscher to give finishing announcements.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I want to thank the senators for being with us today. I also want to give our sponsor, Josh Benson, an opportunity to speak if he would like.
I have to figure out the unmute. No, I just want to thank both senators for being here with us. You know, it's so important. You know, we've been able to operate as an essential business, but it is important that we get all the other businesses up and running in a safe manner. And we appreciate your efforts. It's important. Our transportation system is important. And we're looking forward to everything getting open safely. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.